Don't stop.
Hi, thanks for joining me today. As you can tell, if you've listened to some of my previous episodes of this podcast, I have a real interest in people that are not normal. And when I mean not normal, I mean people that have something unique about them, whether they're psychic or mediums, or they're a healer, or they can do past life regressions. I like people that are not the normal everyday people, people that can, go ghost hunting. And my show is turning into a little bit of kind of a X-Files at times, X-Files type show, where I'm doing all this paranormal stuff. But I really have an interest in it, and I think it's amazing. I love reincarnation. And I also love other guests. I love other guests that I have on that are writers and authors and people that are musicians and trying to make it a career out of that. I love interviewing those type of people, or people that are transgender and making it in today's society where there's so much things against them, or cults. I love cults. So my show is called Everything and Anything for a reason, because I talk about everything and anything that I want to talk about, or have guests on that I want to talk about. But my guest that I have today is so special to me. It's someone that I discovered while going kind of through YouTube. And I listen to many podcasts of my own. And one of the podcasts I listen to is Shawn Ryan. And he had this guest on who went viral over the internet because of something that she said. And you'll hear, we talk about this in the interview, where she talked about the crucifixion. And her name was Angela Ford. And she worked for the government back in the 70s and 80s. And she was able to do remote viewing. And she talks about what she does. She talks about the gifts that she has. And she gave some examples of things that she did with remote viewing. And what really upset me about this interview is that after she did the Shawn Ryan show, which I watched the interview twice and thought it was excellent, what really upset me is that she said that people had so many negative comments that they left about her interview. And I don't know why people would do that. Or, I think people online are just mean anyway, but she is such a nice person. She was so open about it. I think the fact that she's sharing her story online to people just says so much about who she is. She's interesting. She's had an interesting life. She's done some interesting things, and I appreciate her so much for being on my show and sharing these stories with my audience. So I hope you enjoy Angela Ford as much as I do. I like her so much. She offers a channeling class that she does online, and I'm going to start it because I want to keep in touch with her. I want to learn from her. I just want to learn. I want to hear more of her stories because I think she's so fascinating. And I hope you think she's as fascinating as I do and enjoy the episode today. Thanks. Hi, thanks for joining me on the Everything and Anything in a Bit Gay podcast. Today's guest is a woman whose life reads like a suspense novel, but every word of it is true. Angela Ford is one of the most well-known psychic investigators in America, and one of the only a handful of people to work in the U.S. government's top secret remote viewing program known as STARGATE. From tracking fugitives to solving cases to glimpsing information from thousands of miles away, Angela's work has taken her into places most people can't even imagine. She's been featured on the History Channel, A&E, Coast to Coast AM, and most recently the Shawn Ryan Show, where one moment in particular set the internet on fire. Today, we're going to go beyond the headlines and hear the story of the woman behind her remarkable and marvelous abilities. Welcome to my show, Angela.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're just so incredible. I think your gifts are a gift to the world, and I think you're a gift to the world, and I'm so grateful to have you on. So thank you again.
And I'm happy to be here, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So can we kind of start at the beginning? Like, When did you realize that you had these abilities when you were, I mean, I know a little bit about when you were a child, but when's the first time you're like, wow, I have something special?
Well, I always had the abilities as a child. I can remember going out of body. I can remember having dreams. And I knew it was just, even though I was young, I knew it was something different. Now, I would talk to my mother about these things and she would listen. So she never really, poo poo. I mean, she never said, oh, stop talking like that.
Yeah.
But so she would listen. As I got older, my mother was very interested in the ESP. She had a lot of the Edgar Casey books. I think she did. She bought an encyclopedia of parapsychology, where
Oh,
they talk.
really?
Yeah. It was, in fact, we still have the encyclopedia at the home where I was raised, and I have some books here that I took from it. So it talks about channeling and out of body. So, and my mother always had the interest, and she believed in reincarnation. So it was there for me. So I was just a typical kid. I was a teenager. I went to school. I didn't think much of it, but every once in a while, certain things would happen, or I just knew it was. I wasn't afraid of it, but I knew it was paranormal, and
Mhm.
sometimes I would talk about it and sometimes I wouldn't. Now, I graduated from college in 1976, and I didn't have a job. I wasn't doing anything. And no, I was out of a job for a while, and then eventually I decided I was living with my sister, had a criminology degree, and she wanted to be she was a criminologist. So we were in Pennsylvania. We were born and raised in Western Pennsylvania, and after we graduated from college, we really couldn't get a job or anything. So we applied to the FBI.
Okay.
Now, the FBI, you had to have a clearance. So they were doing they were doing the investigation so we could hold a clearance. Well, at that time, at the local university, they had these night classes. And you pay $35, you go for
Yeah.
4 weeks or 6 weeks. And one of the classes, which was taught by a chemistry professor, Dr. Carl Bordis, and he taught ESP.
Oh,
He was psychic, even though he was a chemistry professor. And people who took his class would say that if the class got bored, he would tell people to write a number and put it down, and then he would go around the class and tell them what number he picked. Well, I liked the class. I liked him. But then I got a nighttime job working at a factory, so I had to quit the class
okay.
because I had to make money so I could move from Pennsylvania to Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
But it made an impression on me. I just liked it. So I came down to Washington and I started to work for the FBI. Now, I couldn't be an agent because I didn't have the eyesight and the pay was really lousy.
Mhm.
And it was a difficult agency to work with. This was back in the late 1970s. And it was coming out of the Hoover era where they were trying to bring in women and minorities. And I
Mhm.
think at the time, the FBI only had one female agent.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, I mean, it was something. And at the time, there was no DNA. We had talked about how DNA will be used one day in identifying criminals. But anyway, I worked with a woman named Sue, and her husband was in the Army,
Okay.
intelligence. And he just came from Japan. He was stationed in Japan. They were living in Virginia. So he was working at Army intelligence, and she was working for the FBI. She left the FBI to go work with him as a secretary because she was making more money. So she contacted me and she said the Army intelligence, they're looking for people with political science degrees. They're giving them internships. They're trying to bring young people in because they're losing a civilian workforce and they need to replace it in the years to come. So I applied for an Army intelligence intern program, which I did. And I received the job. And for 3 years, you rotated to different offices, to different agencies, so you would learn how the intelligence community works.
Okay.
You collect the information. There's many different ways in how you collect it. then it comes in, and then you have to disseminate it, and then you have to analyze it, and then you have to report it, and then you have to send it out to policymakers. So it was the whole cycle, and then you learned what the different agencies did, what NSA did, what CIA did. So it was interesting. But at the end of the 3 years, I became a Central American terrorist analyst.
Oh, wow. That must have been interesting.
Well, at the time, it was in the 1980s, mid 1980s, and Central America was a hotbed. I mean,
Yeah.
you had the Sandinista regime in Nicaragua. It was communist. We were watching that. You had Noriega in Panama, and I would brief generals on a Friday morning, give them a Central American briefing, and by that afternoon, they were on their way to Panama, and they were having dinner with Noriega.
Wow.
So it was interesting. And then you had the insurgencies in El Salvador and Honduras. And then the first President Bush came along, and he allowed the military to start getting involved to help in the drug effort. So I was brought in on that. So it was interesting. It was very interesting.
And then how did you end up kind of being part of the STARGATE program?
The Army intelligence had a small corps of remote viewers, but I didn't know anything about it because it was a special access program. And I was working for Army intelligence 4, 5, 6 years, and I did not know that this program existed.
So it was top secret then?
It was beyond top secret. It was special access, SAP. Wow. They called them SAPs. And they were located at Fort Meade, Maryland. They were out of the way. Well, this is what happens. I guess that this program had the support of the Joint Chief of Staff at the Pentagon. It also had congressional support, but Congress was also giving money to the Defense Intelligence Agency for research and development. The Defense Intelligence Agency was giving money to Stanford Research Institute, Duke University. They had a parapsychology effort by a husband and wife team called Rhine and Rhine. And then Princeton had a large ESP research program. So you had research going on, and the Defense Intelligence Agency was looking into the research. But they were also looking into, they called it foreign assessment. They wanted to look to see what other countries were doing. And of course, the Soviet Union came out like the big, really doing. And of course, there was China and Brazil. Now, this all happened like in about 1976, 1973, 1974. You had the Defense Intelligence Agency that was Dr. Jack Verona. He's looking at the research. He hired a man from foreign technology, from the Foreign Technology Division in Ohio, to come to D.C. to figure out the foreign assessment. His name was Dale Graff. And then you had the Army doing the actual operations of remote viewing. Okay. So we had three things going on. Now, there was a man by the name of Skip Atwater, and he was an officer. He was an officer in the Army, and he worked for the Joint Chief of Staff, head of intelligence, and he talked this man in to have a remote viewing cell. So they did. Now, it wasn't really full time, and they were testing it. And then what happened was more information was coming in on how the Soviets were really, they're really doing this. So, of course, we go to Congress and we say, they're doing it, we have to do it. And Congress at the time, and then there was a push for remote viewing because the Army was using people on a part-time basis. But then there was a downed airplane, I think, in 1976, and one remote viewer found it. So that's when people went to the Congress and said, we want to do this full time. So Congress said, okay. They said, we understand there's a threat, and if you want to do it full time, this is how we're going to do it. First of all, they said they stopped the CIA from doing what they were doing because the CIA, under that one program they had since the 1950s and 60s, they were doing mind control. And then they were giving people LSD, and I think 2 people died or 1 person died. So Congress stopped that whole program. And Congress said, we're going to give you a program, but the people that will work as psychics will only be remote viewers. They said they don't want any type of psychokinesis. They don't want any type of movement of objects. They don't want people to come in and hypnotize us. And they said, by law, you will not touch, you cannot manipulate their brain.
Oh, interesting.
So Congress came in and said, we'll give it to you, but you're going to do it this way. So we couldn't really do anything but remote view. So we couldn't the Soviets had a whole program where they were, moving objects, doing other things, but we were only to remote view.
Were you able to move objects and stuff, or anybody that was part of that program, were they able to?
No, I couldn't do it.
Okay.
I levitated one time and I could go out of body, but no, I couldn't. It's hard. PK is hard. You need a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Even when I would try it.
Yeah.
So, and then we had to go by Department of Defense guidelines. They had the general counsel out of Department of Defense at the Pentagon said, they had to sign that they would not mess with us. We were very well protected.
That's amazing.
Yeah, no, a lot of people think that, the government, a lot of people think the government's really bad, but it's not. I think it's dysfunctional, but no, I think it's more dysfunctional than really rotten.
Yeah.
So we could only go so far, but they did protect us, and I do know that we had scientists on call that more or less wanted to do testing with us, and that they had to go before the general counsel at the Pentagon, the lawyers, and explain what they wanted to do because they did not want anything invasive.
Mm.
So I remembered they would do a lot of brain testing because the back of the brain on the right-hand side is where you become psychic.
Mm.
It's good for writing. It's good for being psychic.
It's the creative piece of it, maybe?
And the art and doing art. So they would always test that and measure it. So what happened was the Army was responsible for the remote viewers, Army Intelligence. And there I was sitting at the Army Intelligence headquarters in Arlington, Virginia, not knowing this program existed.
Wow.
The Army Intelligence, it was an Army command. So every 3 or 4 years, they rotate. Well, every so many years, one general would come in and he'd be ahead of the Army Intelligence. And then another one would come in and he'd be ahead of Army Intelligence. Now, whether these generals liked it or not, because they were ahead of Army Intelligence, they automatically inherited the psychic program. So there was one general that came in, and his name was General Bert Stubblebine. Well, this guy, he wasn't only interested in remote viewing, he was interested in mind over matter. And when he came in, remote viewing was just a small part of what he was looking at.
Yeah.
And he was bending spoons. He was taking people down to the Monroe Institute on the weekends. And he was really into this, warrior, be a mental warrior. And he had a man working for him named Colonel John Alexander. And Colonel Alexander would walk on fire. So all of a sudden, these people came in and it just opened up. And I heard that this program existed. And I'm like, my goodness, where have I been all of this time?
Yeah. It was perfect for you, right? Especially since you knew you had these abilities.
Did you ever see the movie Men Who Stare at Goats?
Yes.
If you looked at the general there, that was General Stubblebine. And do you remember the man? I think it was played by, I forget the actor. There was an actor that was kind of played his right-hand man that was flying around. Yeah. That would have been Colonel Alexander.
Okay.
Also during this time, I had a lot of interest in parapsychology. My father had died.
Okay.
So my mother called me up one August or September, and she said that she wanted to take a class. Her and her friends wanted to take a class. They wanted to do something, and they didn't know what to do. So I said, you should take the ESP class that Dr. Bordas teaches at the college. And she said, okay, I think I will. Well, she started to take this class, and what they found out was that she had these abilities. My mother was very psychic, then they could give her objects like watches and rings.
Uh-huh.
And she could talk about, she could tell people's fortunes based by, or she could tell them like who owned the object and what they were like. So my mother started my mother would call me up. She was in Pennsylvania. I was in Washington. Well, the more that she was taking these classes, I was getting interested. And then my father died, and that was a real heartache. So my mother sent me this book. It was called A World Beyond by Ruth Montgomery. And she said, read this book. It will help you with your father's death. And I read it. And then after I read it, I started to do automatic writing. So I think I resonated with the book.
And explain to the audience what I know what it is, but explain to the audience what automatic writing is.
They call it channeling or automatic writing. And you pick up the pen or pencil and you write, you get messages from guides. Now you can get messages from guides. Some people call it their higher self, but you get in tune and you start receiving information. And that's what I did. Because Ruth Montgomery was a channelist, she did it on a typewriter.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So after I started channeling, my sister was taking an astrology class, and her professor, the lady she was taking the class from, she knew my sister and I was doing the automatic writing, and she said, you two should go see Fred Mansbridge. Fred Mansbridge was a psychic. He had some commercial success, and he wrote books, and he had an institute where you could learn how to develop yourself. So we both studied from Fred Mansbridge. And what Mansbridge said is that usually things happen in a person's life where they start questioning life. Like one is death, one is a large loss of a large amount of money, one is a divorce. So something goes on and it kind of breaks somebody open. So I think it was my father's death. I was 29 or 30 years old. And when I did the automatic writing, I said, this is it. I'm psychic.
Yeah.
And that's what did it, even though I had all of this other stuff going on in my life. It would come and go. And I knew it was there, but I didn't know how to develop it or anything. So then I went to meet with the general, and I told him I did automatic writing, and I showed him. Now, this was in 1984. And he had decided to retire because he lost his support at the Joint Chief of Staff level for intelligence.
Okay.
So he said, I'm out of here. He's not getting what he wants. He would rather retire and start his own company. Now, that was in 1984. So I thought, well, then that's it. I'm not going to, that's it. And from what I understand, when he decided to retire, then there was no remote viewing program. There was no operational remote.
So they stopped it.
They stopped it because he was going to retire, but also because the Pentagon, the Joint Chief of Staff, did not want it. He said, cease and desist. So everybody had to stop the operations. But it didn't stop the Defense Intelligence Agency because that's a whole other agency.
Got it.
Well, they're still pouring their money out for the research, and they still have their analysts looking in to see what other countries are doing. So from what I understand, that these military remote viewers were sitting at Fort Meade, and they were just waiting for orders or to go to their next assignment. Well, Dr. Verona stepped into Congress, and he said, do not close that program. Leave people in place and just transfer the remote viewers from Army intelligence to the Defense Intelligence Agency, which took probably a year to do. From 1984 to 1985, and then in 1986, in January, I got vetted for the program, and by the time I did the interviewing, by the time I was interviewed, by the time my clearance was passed from one agency to another, I started as a remote viewer in July 1986.
And did you feel like, whenever you started this job, did you feel super, special for being able to be a part of this unique program that was so classified and stuff? I mean, it sounds like you were going to make a difference in the world. Did you know that at the time?
No, I knew I was going to collect. In the intelligence community, you have collectors.
Okay.
And I knew I was going to collect intelligence. Now, I was always an analyst. With the political science degree,
Yeah.
I was always on the other end where I took the information that was collected and somehow I had to make sense of it all and write a report.
Okay.
No, I knew I was going to go be a collector, but more than anything, I knew I had the ability and I knew I belonged there. And that was my drive. That's what kept me going, because my family was not in the military. I didn't have a military background. So when I went to work for Army intelligence, when I first showed up, to me it was a very strange environment. And I was very depressed. It was just very foreign to me. And they brought interns in, and I think people resented the young people coming in and getting raises every year. The military felt like, what are the civilians doing here? They're not military, but you need the civilians because they keep things cohesive.
Mm-hmm.
The military can come and go, but you need that backbone. You need that structure, and that's what the civilians do. And then I think they made fun whenever I decided to do Central America. It wasn't Russia or China. I had so much action by the time everything was going on. Everybody wanted to do Central America.
Oh, yeah.
And I felt like when I got to the psychic program, I felt like I belonged there. And I felt it was my destiny. And what I felt was I had to have gone through what I went through to get me there.
Yeah. It was a journey you had to take to get there.
Yeah.
And the people that you worked with in the psychic unit, did you feel like, oh, I've met my people now? Like, these are people that I can relate to and that understand me?
No.
No.
No, not at all. They were military. I went into the program, and the very first day I was there, I opened up the door. I had one foot in the door, the other foot wasn't quite in the room. The training officer looked at me and he said, "We've heard about you," because they knew I was a channel. And he said, "You have a bad habit." And he said, the channeling, they didn't like he said, "You have a bad habit." He said, "We're going to teach you the right way, how to remote view." Oh, it was awful. But, I was used to it because that's military way.
Yeah.
So I said, okay. And I did not do my channeling. And they taught me extended remote viewing, which is nothing more than going into a meditative state, visualizing the image. They put a picture in an envelope. You visualize the image. You come out, you describe it, you draw a picture, and you write a report. So I did that.
And that's not what you really wanted to do, though, was it?
Well, I did it because I knew when I worked in the military before, there were things that I did that I would get in trouble for because I wouldn't follow the rules. And I really wanted to be there, so I didn't want to get in trouble. So I said, well, I'll follow the rules.
Yeah.
But no, they didn't like it that I was a channelist. They said, you shouldn't do that. And and I said, well, what I do on my personal time is my business, and I'm not doing it here. So, but they didn't like that. Now, the military is big on training. Mm-hmm. They love to train.
Yeah.
So if they brought somebody into the psychic program, their attitude was, we can train them. It was a special access program, so you really couldn't go out on the street and advertise for it. So they were bringing in, one guy had a neighbor that he liked, and he told his neighbor, come on over and take the Myers-Briggs test, and we'll see, maybe you can fit in this job. And so they brought the guy, and they didn't know. I worked with military people that they never read a book on, they did have the Seth books there by Jane Montgomery.
Yeah.
But I was immersed. I was immersed in the psychic realm. I read Jane Roberts. There was Edgar Cayce, Ruth Montgomery. I was taking classes. I was immersed in it.
Yeah.
And these people were just.
It's like they were there just to collect a paycheck.
Yeah. They didn't know. But also, too, we had a Mormon in there, and it was against his. It was a religious thing too.
Yeah.
So what I represented was something that they didn't believe in. It went against their religion. It went against their belief system. And if you're doing something or believe in something and it goes against somebody else's belief system, they're not going to like it.
No.
And they didn't like me.
And how did you get past that, though?
Well, what I did is I just kept doing my meditation and coming out. And, I wasn't bad. I was getting good results. I mean, they were strong enough to be reported, but everybody was happy as long as I was doing what they told me to do. Now, about a year and a half after I was in the program, management changed. The guy who told me I had a bad habit, he retired.
Okay.
Then we had the boss. He retired. So we said, bye-bye, bye-bye. My friend was my secretary. And then I think somebody else, there was another woman that retired who was married to a general, and she could have given us a hard time too. So it's sort of like these people were taken out. So we got a new boss. They had hired a man by the name of Fern Garvin, who used to be one of the original remote viewers back in 1976.
Oh.
When the Army was just bringing them in on a part-time basis. And Fern was very spiritual. He was a Jesuit. He studied with the Jesuits. He was going to be a Jesuit priest, but he was very spiritual. And then they brought in one scientist from Stanford Research Institute because the two main scientists, Hal Puthoff and Russell Target, retired.
Okay.
So we had new people coming in. And they were like, you can do anything you want to, whatever you want to get the information. If you have to stand on your head, we don't care what methodology you use. It's a personal thing. Now, see, the Army was using something called coordinate remote viewing. Stanford Research had a psychic on staff there by the name of Ingo Swann. Okay. And the government paid SRI and then the SRI paid Ingo. And they said, write something up and tell us how it works technically, because every time they go to Congress, they're laughed at every time they go to Congress to try to get the money, everybody laughs at the psychic program. So SRI, through Ingo Swann, wrote up a little technical book, and they called something like signal line. Well, the remote viewer will access the signal line. And then once they access the signal line, then they come back and do the report. But it was a very technical to put together that you could show because to gain support. Well, the military in the office took it as their Bible. They were like, oh my goodness, we have a training manual. And they started to train on that. And Ingo Swann was well known as a psychic. And so everybody idolized Ingo Swann, and they liked the CRV methodology.
Okay.
Now, I didn't do CRV because they didn't want me in. When I first went in there, I was the female civilian, and the military, a lot of them were doing the CRV, and they needed somebody to do the ERV because they had hired an ERV trainer, and they had to give him something to do, so they gave him me.
Okay.
So you had CRV, and then when Fern Garvin, my boss, came in, he remembered that time period of the CRV. And Fern came in and he said, Fern was not a big proponent of CRV. And he goes, I don't care what you do. And he was like, if you want to do CRV, that's your business. But he really wasn't a big proponent of it. And they allowed us to do other things. So I thought, well, I'm going to try my channeling. I'm going to try my automatic writing. Well, Fern and I went over, and I think my first session I did with automatic writing was the hostage, Terry Anderson.
Oh.
He was a hostage in Lebanon, and Fern put the picture in the envelope. But I don't know what I said. I said something like maybe being held against his will. It's not the country where he's from, but eventually he'll be released. And then we started working. And Fern goes, I like this. I like what you're saying. I like what you're doing. So we started to do hostages. I started to do locations of the hostages. I started to do health statuses. I said that Poe Hill would come out with a sore throat, and he came out with throat cancer.
Oh.
And so Fern starts running the information up to headquarters, and Dr. Verona starts giving it to the analyst. Now, in Beirut, what had happened was you couldn't get signals Beirut is a very mountainous country.
Yeah.
So you can't fly in and try to take pictures. You can't get signals. The only way you could get information was spies on the ground, people on the ground. Well, Clinton took out the spies on the ground because it was getting very dangerous. So there was no collection assets in Lebanon at all. The United States didn't have any collection assets against, and it came down to us. So which really wasn't fair to us because you do need other collection methodologies.
And did you feel pressure knowing that you were the? Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, what happened was there was a man named Colonel Higgins. He was a Marine. He was a Marine officer, and he went to Lebanon.
Okay.
And he was kidnapped, I think 1 or 2 weeks after he arrived. And we got called in on a Sunday to work it because they were so afraid he was going to be killed because he was a military officer. He wasn't a professor at Beirut University. So we went in and we worked it, and they asked that, and one of the questions was they asked me, where's Colonel Higgins?
Yeah.
So we're looking at old imagery, we're looking at pictures, and I said, he's right there. Well, it was an old piece of imagery. And of course, my people said, well, there's nothing there. How could he be there? There's nothing there. There's nothing but woods. So the analysts didn't say anything, and they said, we don't know. It's old imagery. So not long after I said where he was, the terrorist, Hezbollah, they released one of their hostages. And this man's name was Cordes.
Okay.
And he was German. So Cordes went back to Germany, and our analyst flew out to Rhine-Main to interview him. And they said, where is Higgins? And the guy pointed right to where I pointed. And they said, but there's nothing there. And he said, they built a shed, and that's where he is.
Yeah.
So he was where I said he was.
And we'll be right back. Okay, and now back to the show. And do you have any other stories of like where you were able to save lives like this, or you knew exactly like where a fugitive was or anything? Like, is there another example?
Well, I like doing the hostages because I'll finish up with this, and then I'll do the Wyoming case. Everybody,
okay.
I continued to work the hostages, and we were kind of coming to a close. And I don't know, we were doing locations, and we had Terry Anderson in the Bekaa Valley one time, and they said, he'd never be in the Bekaa Valley, but he was. So I would do locations and health statuses. They would run them from Fort Meade, Maryland to DC, and then the analysts would give it to the Israeli embassy, and then the Israelis would call it in, and they could see the hostages, or we would report.
Okay.
Well, one time, I guess it was coming kind of to an end, and I said, I don't know. I said something about, I said, there was a man by the name of Jonathan Livingston, and he's going to help in the release of the hostages. So they took that to the analyst, and the analyst started to look in microfiche because that's what they had back then.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't find any United States person by the name of Jonathan Livingston. They had no idea who this man was. Well, I guess my report, one of the analysts went to the Pentagon, and Colonel Higgins had a wife. Her name was Robin, and I think she was a military officer, and I don't know if she was a Marine, but my report was sitting on her desk. And one of the analysts said, do you know who Jonathan Livingston is? And she said, yes. She said, he's a British envoy that they sent down to Beirut. He's supposed to go down and start negotiating the release of the hostages. And the reason that they couldn't find Jonathan Livingston in the microfiche was because he was from England. He wasn't a United States person. They were looking through like State Department.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, who is Livingston? Who is this guy? Well, when Terry Waite wrote his book, which Terry Waite was a minister, and he became a hostage from England. And when he wrote his book, he credited Jonathan Livingston as the guy who he broke it. I mean, he was able to he credited Livingston as getting them out.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and everybody was waiting for Terry Anderson to be left out, and I said he'll be the last one out, and he was. because they really didn't like him. The hostages didn't like him. So
So,
that's what I did.
like, what are you seeing, though? Are you actually seeing where people are at whenever you're doing your remote viewing?
No, you just come up with locations. A lot of times people think that you see. A lot of it is feeling. A lot of it
Okay.
is sort of like dowsing. It's a lot of it is verbal. With the automatic writing, you're getting a lot of verbal information
Yeah.
more so than meditating, because meditating gives you the visual. So
And what's your Wyoming story? I can't wait to hear this one.
you don't know about the Wyoming?
Is this where they said it was, they thought he was in Florida and he really was in Wyoming? Yeah. Tell my audience that in case they didn't hear it. Because I think I love that story because they were so wrong and you were right on.
Okay. So there was a man by the name of Charles Jordan, and he was on the 10 Most Wanted list, and there was a TV program called The 10 Most Wanted.
Okay.
So this case was unclassified. Well, Dr. Verona was talking to a customs person, bureaucrat, high up in the system, and the guy said, can your people find Charles Jordan for me?
Yeah.
Now, I know nothing. I don't know anything. Charles Jordan was a customs agent that I guess he went rogue. So instead of arresting the bad guys with the drugs, he more or less took the money, kept the money, or maybe he became he was just bad. He didn't do his job. He was a customs agent that went bad.
Mm-hmm.
And more or less he did it probably for the money. So Dr. Verona said, well, we'll see what we can do. So I went in with Fern, and the secretary, Jeannie, always took notes. And I didn't know anything. And Fern said, where is Charles Jordan? And I said, he's in Lowell, Lowell, Wyoming. And Fern said, are you sure you don't mean Massachusetts? There's a Lowell, Massachusetts. Yeah. And Fern was born in Lowell, Massachusetts. And I said, no. I said, I'm getting the feeling of cowboys and Indians and that out west.
Yeah.
It's Lowell, Wyoming. So Fern says, well, I never heard of a Lowell, Wyoming. Well, no, we didn't. Nobody's heard of a Lowell, Wyoming. Yeah. So there was a book in the room where we remote viewed. And in the book, it was an atlas, like every page you turned. So we went to Wyoming, and he said, Angela, there's a Lovell, Wyoming. I said, close enough. That has to be it. Now, so instead of saying Lovell, I said Lowell.
Yeah.
So I said, now, then what happened is after I said that he was in Wyoming, then I started to get visuals in the feeling of drugs in the Caribbean and Florida. And then I was very perplexed because I was getting two different feelings. Then I said, I'm not going to work anymore because if I do, I'm going to change. I'm going to change locations. I'm going to be on something else. And I thought the smartest thing to do was just stop working. If you had the miss, you had the miss. You take it. You're not 100% right all the time.
Yeah.
So it came out, and really the only information we had was Lovell, Wyoming. Well, in the government system, they want to report and everything. So anyway, Dr. Verona went back to customs, and he said one person reported Lovell, Wyoming, and customs said he would never be there, and everybody else had him in Florida and the Caribbean. Now,
and you stuck to your guns and said it's Wyoming.
Yeah, it was it. You can't move. That's what I said. You go with it. Well, they did the same thing with Higgins when I said he was in the one place, and they said, "Well, there's nothing there." Well, he's there.
Yeah.
So my boss and everybody kept wanting me to work. They wanted more information, and there was nothing more I could say. It's clear. It just comes out. Wyoming. So Fern was trying. He was telling Dr. Verona, well, why don't they just send the FBI up there and start looking around? It's not a large populated area. So I don't know what made me do a second session. I think Dale Graff came down from D.C., and he had wanted a second session. And I thought, well, since he made the trip down, and it's been about 3 or 4, it must have been about a month. I think it was about a month or 6 weeks afterwards. I said, okay, I'll do one more session. And then so we went in and we did another session. And I said, if you want to get Higgins, you have to get, or if you want to get Charles Jordan, you have to get him now. He's traveling 100 miles west of Lovell, Wyoming. And then I explained the Indian burial ground. I explained the hotel where he was staying. And so they took the information, they ran it to the customs people, and Dr. Verona took it into customs, and he said that Charles Jordan is moving out of the Lovell area. And the customs man said, as we're speaking, Charles Jordan is being apprehended 100 miles west of Lovell, Wyoming. So that was that. So, and they did say, they said the Indian burial ground, the hotel, it was everything that I had said. So we were all happy, and I thought I had the hit, and I thought, well, there I had the success, I had the hit. And they said, oh, no, you didn't do it. There was a security guard at Yellowstone National Park. They saw him, and they reported him. So they kind of took it away from me. Oh, and then I said I wanted the reward money, and they said, oh, you're only doing your job. I mean, what a downer.
Yeah.
That's like the Olympic medal. That's like the gold medal. To do something like that, that was the gold medal.
Is there anything you've ever done that really surprised you that you were able to tell them, or to do overall that you've been able to kind of think about and that you've been able to say and predict? Is there anything that's you're just like, wow, I can't believe I did that?
Oh, all the time when I did it, when I was surprised with that. I would, all the time, because you're scared. Well, it's nerve-wracking. You're working it. Yeah. You know that they're giving information for operational use. Oh, yeah, all the time. And then when you do it, you're like, oh. But oh yeah, it's just a mixed bag of emotions. It's just you want to do it, and then you hope you're right, then you're scared, and then and then it's right, and then you get happy. So I'm always surprised. Because every time I think I did well, I did terrible, and every time when I thought I did terrible, I did well. So it's confusing. It's just very confusing. Now, what happened with the Wyoming case was, since it was an unclassified case, it became known over at the BBC got a hold of the case, and they found out about it, and they flew here from England into Washington, D.C., and they spoke with Dale Graff and I, and then they came back a year later, and they did a reenactment of the whole case for the Discovery Channel in June 1994 and 1995. So the customs man was there, and Dale Graff said, boy, it's a shame we didn't get any credit off Jordan. And the customs man said, are you kidding? He said it was because of her we were able to find him. That shortly after I said he was in Wyoming, about 3 or 4 weeks later, Charles Jordan sent a picture of himself to his mother, and she showed it to the FBI. And in it was a truck, a vehicle with Wyoming license plate. And they knew, and what they did is they were just sending pictures, just flooding pictures. And that's how, so we didn't know that until 1994. And the case was done in 1988 or 1989.
Wow.
So we found out years later that it was.
And you talked just to kind of go back to your mother. So your mother had these psychic abilities, so she was so supportive of you doing this throughout your life, right? So how about your sister? Was your sister?
She was good. My sister was psychic. She was good. She was better than me.
Oh, really?
Oh, she was good. She could tell you conversations, what people were going to say.
Wow.
In fact, when I talked to General Stubblebind, who talked to me about, he was interested in how people were raised. That he found that if people were, he asked me how I was raised. My parents weren't really that strict with me, and they found that if you didn't come from a strict environment, you're more open to this. But I told him that my mother had, she would buy books. I thought, as a teenager, I thought my mother was weird. But he said, no, he said, it was there for you. Yeah. He said, as you were growing up, that was there for you. You were allowed to explore it. You were allowed to look at it. He said, see, a lot of people, when they talk to their parents, like I saw my dead grandmother, they're told to, oh, don't talk like that, be quiet.
And how did it impact you, the way you think about religion, whenever you realized you had this gift?
I was born and raised Catholic.
Okay.
It didn't take anything away from the Catholic religion on how I was raised. It didn't. Jesus was a master. He was a master teacher. It brought out even more love. Religion is religion. It's dogma. But when you start getting spiritual, there's different. It's a deeper connection.
Mhm.
But it didn't take anything away from being Catholic, but it gave me more understanding and more patience. And we really do have to be kind to one another. We have to be kind to each other. Nobody, and we're all the same. We're here to help each other. We live on Earth. It's our home. We have to help Earth. You get that connection. I started to think more globally. So it didn't really impact my religion, although I will say that I really don't go to Catholic church anymore, and I don't feel the need to go to church.
Does it make you think differently? Like the Catholic religion, there's a heaven and a hell. Do you believe that now?
No, I don't. I believe that I believe in reincarnation. Now, the hardest thing for me to believe in was reincarnation. Once I believed in reincarnation, then I feel that my psychic abilities ever became better because you can start seeing the thread and it makes sense. So I don't really feel there's a heaven or a hell. I feel there's different levels.
Yes.
And that you have to do good. And if you do good, you'll be good to go on the other side.
Yeah.
And I think that there's just different levels.
I agree. I think the same thing. I agree that you have that when you come back and you can come back. And I think that you come back with the same people that you were with in this life.
Oh, absolutely. It's your everything's karma. Everything's karma. You have your family karma, your friends karma. So everything's just karma. And you do come back. You've had feelings where you think you know somebody.
Yeah.
I've had animals that I've known have been with me in past lives. I've had that. So that has changed. But I think it was, what was it? Was it Constantine in the 15th century? He wanted to be the ruler of the government and the church.
Okay.
So he did not allow people to have information to certain things because he wanted control of the church.
Yeah.
And that's where he was the one that was saying, if you believe in reincarnation, that's telling you have a chance to come back and be better.
Yeah. It makes sense if you really think about reincarnation and just like the karma thing. It just makes so much sense if people would just open their minds to it more.
Yeah, to me, that was the biggest thing. But once I crossed the line, once I crossed and said, okay, I think I believe in this, wow, it just really, I became a better psychic. Everything was better.
And did it make you not scared to die also?
I just don't want to die, but I'm always afraid of dying. But, well, no, I love Earth, so I want to live as long as I can, but it made me excited to know that I could come back again.
Yeah.
It made me very excited to think, I can come back. I can learn here and then come back.
And let me ask you a question that's kind of different. Do you think that there's places that you can go other than Earth when you come back?
Yeah, you mean to other planets? Oh, of course. I think we visit other planets in between lives.
Oh, you do?
When we go to in between lives, I think that we can do whatever we want, and we can go to other planets. We can learn what's on other planets. I think we've been on other planets learning things before we come down here.
Wow.
I think that we had a Palladian influence here that helped make Earth progress. Earth. I believe that we've had helpers from other places that have come here and helped us.
Yeah.
We keep ruining it. We keep how many civilizations have we had that we keep destroying? And are we doing it again? I don't know. Sometimes I think we are.
Yeah. And in another interview you did you say that you went to the sun or something one time?
I was out of body and I just felt like I went straight to the sun. It was so bright, but it made me very happy.
Yeah. I think whenever I really started to believe in reincarnation and stuff, it made me not so scared to die. Like, I don't want to die either. I like being here too, and I want to live my life out fully.
it just gave you something to look forward to.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're going to be with all your people again, and then you kind of sit around before you come back, and you'll say, well, you were my mother last time, maybe come back as my sister. But yeah, and you're with it's like love. It's joyful.
Yeah, and it's like I know I'm going to get to see my father who's passed away again one day, and we'll get to that's really, and we'll come back as something else together is what I believe.
Yeah, and it did make me happy.
Yeah, good. Do you kind of do you do predictions where you're kind of like what's going to happen in 6 months, a year, 50 years from now?
Yeah, I do. I did that I did.
What do you think we are today in this world? Like, it's a scary world, I think, today more than ever. And do you have like any predictions where you think we're going to be at in 20 years from now or even 50 years from now?
No, I don't, because it's so confusing right now. Things are so confusing that it's hard to see what it's going to be like. It's decision. It's so crucial right now because our thoughts and what we do, that's going to create our future. It's almost like it's up to us right now.
Yeah.
I could make predictions before. I can't make them now. It's like this is all everything's coming together, and where do we go and what's going to happen?
Does it scare you where we're at?
Sometimes it does. I mean, it does scare me because I don't want to see any more. I think we have so much sophistication.
Mm-hmm.
We have technology, so much technical sophistication. We know more now than we've ever known before as far as medical health. Yeah. Why aren't we using it for the good? It just seems like, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
It's why are we messing up? When we have so much, we could do so good. We could do things. And I don't know, people worry about what other people have and who has more, and you just have to live your life and be grateful. And I don't know. I don't know where we're going. I don't know what's happening.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Okay, and now back to the show. There was a moment whenever you were on, like the Shawn Ryan show interview was amazing. Did you love doing that with him?
No, I thought the interview was terrible, and I read my reviews by some people, and they said awful things about me.
No, really? I thought it was amazing. I watched it twice. It was so good. And I loved your show that you just did, Breakdown, the other podcast. I thought you did fantastic on that, too.
I like with Mayim.
Yeah,
Mayim. She was good. Yeah, I liked her a lot. She made me real comfortable.
Yeah, I thought you did fantastic on both of them. I thought the Shawn Ryan show was just... I think that when the piece that went viral when he asked you about the crucifixion, did that bother you that he asked you that?
Yeah, I was surprised he asked me. I was in shock that he asked me that question, and I'm thinking, and that I stopped. I just stopped, and I'm like, I was in such shock that I did. That's why I just shut up. But I knew not to answer that question because he has mainstream listeners. There was no way I was going to answer that question with mainstream listeners.
Yeah.
No, I did not see the crucifixion, and no, I haven't been a part of it.
Yeah.
That was the God's. I don't even know how we got there.
I didn't know how you got there either. It was bizarre.
I don't know what, and that made me very uncomfortable. From that point on, I was very uncomfortable in the interview.
Yeah.
And I also felt that, but I was told afterwards, Dr. May told me, he said, Angela, you have to control the interviews.
Yeah.
He said, you have to control the interview. And somehow it just got out of, I'm like, where did that come from? But no, I did not see the crucifixion. I mean, you can remote view anything. I mean, if I wanted to see I could remote, but no, I don't know where he was getting at. And then as I'm going through and being interviewed by him, I'm starting to realize that he doesn't know as much as I thought he would know. And that's another thing that I get in trouble because people say, "Oh yeah, I know this, and I know, and I understand." And I've come to understand he had one experience, And from that one experience, he decided to explore. And I thought he knew more than what he did. I've
Got it.
been in those situations. So when people start talking, like, well, what do? Well, I channel and I channel through guides, and they write messages to me. And yes, I go out of bar. I mean, when I start seeing their eyes getting big and thinking, oh my God, is she crazy? Or they get afraid of me, but they tell me that they know what it's all about. So I start talking about myself, and then I think I scare them.
I think it's fascinating, and maybe because I believe in it, and I've studied it, and I've read about it, and watched documentaries, and I've watched many interviews with you and stuff. So that's why I was, whenever you agreed to do the show, I was so thankful, because I think you're fascinating, and I think what you do has just, like, you've helped the world and stuff, and just you're remarkable.
I don't know if I helped the world. It was intense. It was intense.
But you did help the world. Like, think about whenever the Wyoming story, just think about that, and the hostages and stuff that you've helped. I mean, you have helped the world. Like, you've done a lot of amazing, your karma, you have good karma. So that's going to come back to you.
Well, and then I did the submarine. Did the
No,
submarine?
I don't know the submarines. Tell me that story.
Well, what happened was, remember Gaddafi, and they said that they thought he had a chemical plant, but
Yeah.
nobody could confirm or deny, and
Yeah.
they thought that was someplace. So we were so tasked, like the chemicals, does he have chemicals? Well, Vern and I went to work, and I said they're bringing the chemicals in from Turkey on a ship, and I did this whole rendezvous and how they're going and how they're coming in, and I called the ship the Potato. I spelled it like potato.
Okay.
And so we called it, even though it came out Potato, as we're writing the report and we're getting ready, we're calling it the Big Potato. So we take the report down to headquarters, and I guess the analyst, whoever did Libya or Gaddafi, my report's sitting on the desk, and Dr. Verona walks by, and he asked the analyst, he says, do you know about this? And the analyst said, oh, yeah, it's not potato, it's potato, it's B. So instead of making I didn't make the other loop for the B. So Dr. Verona took the report, and he took it to the director of DIA, and he said, read this. He said, this came from one of the remote viewers, and this was the same remote viewer that gave you this, and this, and that we think that the chemicals are kind of rendezvousing this way. So the director calls up Greece, and they launch a submarine based on my information.
Wow.
I know. So we get a call from Fort Meade. Dr. Verona calls and says, they're launching a submarine. They're going out to look for these chemicals. Well, that to me was a lot, because do you realize how much it cost the taxpayers to launch a submarine?
Yeah.
So they did go out. Now, what they found out was how it came out. It was like highly, highly probable. They said highly probable. We didn't get the chemicals, but they felt that what I said was highly probable, and that's how they were doing it. So that really wasn't like the smash hit. But after launching a submarine, based on my information only, I was happy that it came out highly probable. I was thankful for that.
That's what I mean. You're amazing. You got to think about those moments where launching a submarine, that's insane. Like, you have to, like, you have such an amazing gift, and you should be so proud of that.
I know that, but sometimes it would get frustrating, because one time we were doing, I guess there was a terrorist holding up an airplane, hostages. Okay. I had to work late one night, and they said, what about these people in the airplane? And I'm sitting there, they go, what's going to happen? And I said, nothing. Well, then everybody's getting frustrated with me, and I'm sitting there and I'm trying to write, and they said, what's going to happen to these people? This is a crisis. You got, you have Middle Eastern terrorists in charge of an airplane. And I said, nothing. And I think people were getting frustrated. And here what happened was, it was the next day, and the terrorists let all the hostages go because it was the beginning of Ramadan.
Yeah.
And that's what I said. But that's the most frustrating part, because it's like
it's like, listen to me, right? Like, you're like, tell them to listen to, yeah.
It was the same thing with the Lovell, Wyoming. They just can't take Lovell, Wyoming. Yeah.
And if they would listen to you, they would have saved a lot of time, right? And a lot of effort.
Yeah. But that was kind of stuff.
Like when things like, that are world changing, like a 9/11 or something happens, do you know something like that could possibly be happening before it does?
Oh, sure. Now, 9/11, that was a big, as we say, signal, as they say
Yeah.
in coordinate remote. People that weren't even psychic had impressions. 9/11. If you talk to people after 9/11, or
Yeah.
even if you talk to them now, they'll say, I had a dream that was going to happen. Or they'll say, I was driving by the Pentagon and I just had a feeling something terrible was going to happen. So that signal was out there. And a lot of people picked up on 9/11. You'd be surprised at the amount of people that would come to me and said, I had a feeling, I had a hunch.
Yeah.
So I always tell people that when you give a reading or when you look at information psychically, you can always talk. The psychic can probably give you information about the past and the present because the footprint's there.
Yeah.
But when you start going out into the future, you have free will and anything can happen. So it's a little bit harder to predict the future. But of course I would do it. Of course I would do it. I can remember one time, it was when Gorbachev first came into power.
Mhm.
He was the Soviet leader, and we didn't know whether to trust him because he was trying to open up the Eastern Bloc countries to the Western world for economic reasons because these people were starving, and the people were starving in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the United States didn't know whether or not to trust him. So a lot of what I had was, do you trust this man? But I didn't know of course, I didn't know who I was doing. But there was one time that there was supposed to be a very important summit or meeting with the Western leaders and Gorbachev. So I was tasked more or less, what was the outcome of the meeting? What were people thinking going in? We were trying to access, who was trustworthy, who wasn't. Was somebody going to try to, not trust Gorbachev? We didn't know what to think. So what happened was, this meeting's supposed to take place in the future. Well, on the day of the meeting or the day before, there was a natural catastrophe, like either an earthquake or a flood.
Okay.
The meeting never took place.
And how you can't predict that, right?
It was like, it was just, so something was supposed to happen, but it didn't happen. And after that, the meeting never got scheduled either. So it was just bye-bye.
Wow.
The meeting never took place and it was never rescheduled.
Wow. Are you still doing things for people? Not the government, obviously, but are you still like helping people kind of like guide them and give them, not prediction, but kind of give them guidance on what your guides are telling them?
Oh, I give readings. I give psychic readings. I teach classes.
Oh, you do?
I teach remote viewing classes. I teach more like the meditative description, keeping in with the remote viewing protocols. And then I also work for a scientist, Dr. May, out in Mountain View, California, because scientists need statistics.
Yeah.
They put the picture in the envelope, access and describe it, and they need statistics because if you go over 50%, then they say that there's something there.
Yeah.
So I work for scientists too.
Wow, that's amazing. And when you teach these classes, do you feel like kind of everybody could do this if they were taught how to do it, or?
I think that people can remote view. When I make people, I say, now go down and relax, and you're going to get imagery, and come back and just tell me tell me. Now, I think that people can remote view. It's whenever they come back and they try to tell me what the reporting, like, what did you see?
Yeah.
I think that's the harder point, is just trying to describe it to me.
And do they ever let their imaginations get in the way instead of what they really?
Oh, yeah, because when you remote view an outdoor picture, which that's what they mostly are, what can you say? It's either water, mountain, house, structure, vegetation. There's not much you can say. So you usually get in there, see the picture, come out. You could probably be done in about 20 or 30 minutes, even less.
Yeah.
I know for myself, Ed May and I work quickly because I just get in, get out. And because the longer you stay in, then the imagination takes
Yeah.
over. But you can tell, you can, even when I teach people, you can tell like they have it. They'll have it right on. They get it. Like 3 minutes, 4 minutes, you saw the mountain, you saw the water, that's it. Then they'll start going. Then they make it real dramatic. And the water's dangerous and you could drown. But so you kind of have to say, look, just these are just outdoor pictures. They're nothing.
Yeah.
These are just research kind of pictures. This isn't an operation or anything.
And are you doing the classes in person or online?
Online on Zoom.
That's amazing. If somebody wanted to sign up for them, where do they go?
I have my email, fordangela04@gmail.com.
And it goes for 4 weeks?
We go for 6 weeks.
6 weeks, okay.
5 weeks is long enough. By the time the 5th week comes, you can tell that they feel like they've learned something, they can do something, and then I just give them that extra week, and we kind of do fun stuff or what. I just feel like to give them an extra week.
Yeah.
And then I task them during the week, so that will give them more remote viewing experience.
Yeah. So my last question is, what do you think the most amazing thing is that you've kind of done with your abilities or your gift in your life? Like, what's the thing that you're most proud of or most surprised about?
You mean I think with the government, that work was, the hostages. I really felt if I could make a difference, I think it was the hostages, because I worked them day in and day out, and it was terrible, just terrible how they were treated and how they came out. And I did terrorist stuff, and it's ugly. It's really, really ugly.
But is it hard to disconnect from that when you end your day and to go home and try not?
It was very difficult to disconnect, very difficult, and that bothered me too. It was rough. It was very intense during that time.
And can you think of a time whenever you did something that, the hostages is great. You've saved lives like that. That's why I'm thinking your karma is so good, because of these type of things that you did. But have you ever kind of given somebody a glimpse into their future and said, and you changed their life, you changed the direction of their life because you said, this is what you're going to do in life. This is this is the road you're going down. Have you ever done anything like that where
people call me up all the time, what was it? I read a woman, I don't know, I think it was last year. And she had problems, and she was talking about her problems, and she was down. And I said, don't worry about anything. Next year, you're going to make a lot of money. Well, she looked at me like I was crazy. Do you know, not too long ago, she sent me a picture of herself, all dressed up. She said, I just want you to know, you were right. I made a lot of money, and her business took off. So I get a lot of that. I do get a lot of that. And health stuff, like people call if worried about which health stuff. Now that's hard though. That's difficult.
Yeah, because how do you tell somebody that they have a major issue or something?
Yeah, in fact, you got to be careful with the health stuff, but I think they just want to know if they're going to be okay or something. But I do get people will say, oh, sure, I get feedback. People will call me. I've had people look at me like I'd say things, and they'd look at me like I was crazy, and then call back, and they would say, you're right. But I can't even, so much of that. I've done so much of that.
That's amazing. I just want to say again about the Shawn Ryan show, I don't want you to ever, I think you were wrong about what people thought about you. I thought you did an incredible job. I thought on Mayim's podcast, you did an incredible job. And I think you're an incredible person. And I just am so grateful that you agreed to come on this show. My listeners are going to love you just like I do. And I'm just so thankful that you did this. And I think it's just amazing. Your whole life is amazing about how you were in the secret, confidential, agent program and that part of the government, and you helped hostages and you helped solve all these things. It's truly amazing.
But you have to look. It was a very small program. It was a very small program. It was a special access program. So, we were very tiny compared when you think of the intelligence world in the Pentagon and what
Yeah.
people are doing overseas. We were like a little bug under a rug. So to think that you're there doing something special, you've got a lot of things going on. So so I don't know. And then I think a lot of it was dysfunctional. A lot of times, and then a lot of times I didn't know any better either. I mean, if I would have known I was going to be treated so bad, maybe I would have left.
Yeah.
But I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't know where else. I didn't know where else to go. So I don't know. I guess it went the way it was supposed to go.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you've had a very fulfilling life, though. I mean, you've done some amazing things and you've helped some people, and it sounds like you're still doing that. So I think you got to be happy with that,
And how did you get involved in the what made you have the interest in the psychic realm?
What made me interested was that after my father died, he came back, and there were signs, lots of signs. And I knew there was something more. I knew he didn't just die and go to heaven or go to hell or just die. And he gave me a lot of signs. And I still get signs. Even 2 weeks ago, I was getting signs from him. And I just knew there was something more. And I took a mediumship class with the guy, and I took it for about over a year. And I started connecting with people, and I'm like, wow. And I actually did it for my podcast, where I was just going to go and just talk about it. And then once I realized it was real, I didn't do an episode about it because it was so personal to me. And then I took a psychic class, and because of the timing, it was at nighttime on the West Coast, and it was just too late for me. I did it for 6 weeks. But I think the whole thing is interesting. And it makes me believe, again, like whenever I die, I know I'm not going to just die. I never really kind of believed in heaven or hell, but I know there's going to be more. And I know karma is so important, and to treat people good and kind, very similar to what you said. Like, your beliefs is what I believe too. And that's why whenever I like having people like you on my show, because I want everybody to understand how great this is and how real it is.
And that because of it, we can control our future.
Yes.
We can create. We can be creators. I always tell people, do something creative. I mean, I think, we can be creators, and I don't know, I think there's just a lot to it. I mean, there's a lot to the whole field.
Yeah. I mean, I want to know what's going to happen with my show down the road. I'm coming up on my 100th episode, and I would love to do this full time. But I don't know. I'm kind of going with the flow to see what happens with it and stuff. And those are the things that, but when I get people like you that come on, even if I wasn't going to do this full time, I just love having these conversations with people like you. So that's how I feel. So I feel fortunate, meeting 100 different people that are numerologists, to people that are mediums, to people that I've met all types of people. And I always leave so happy whenever I end the show with someone, because I've made that connection with someone. And I have thousands of people listening to these stories now. And it's just, they're going to appreciate it so much. And I'm entertaining people, and I like it.
Yeah, no, you got a nice show. You have a nice show.
Thank you so much. Again, you're amazing. And I'm so glad that you came on, and I'm so glad that my listeners get to hear your story. And you're you made my whole month by coming on my show.
I think you're great. You're very nice. You're very charming.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah, you're very charming.
Well, you're an amazing guest. And again, you made my whole month. You're the top guest that I think I've had on before. And I'm thrilled that you shared your story with me. So thank you so, so much. I will put your email address in the description of this podcast and in the video. So if someone wants to take your class or get a reading, they can reach out to you and do that. And again, thank you so much for being on the show. And everybody, Angela Ford. So please reach out to her, and say hello to her and leave a comment about what you think about the show and the podcast or the video that you're watching, and tell us what you thought about the interview with Angela. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. Thanks everybody for listening, and thank you again, Angela, for being on.
Thank you. Thank you.